Hello, I'm Wayne DeBey, A.I.F.D, and this is my wife.
And I'm Peggy DeBey, and welcome to Creations at the Flower Nook.
Welcome, I'm Wayne DeBey, the Flower Man, and we're at the Flower Nook today, going to explore a little bit of fall flavor. I know that it's early August when we're filming this, but that really means that fall is just around the corner. So I've chosen some kind of fun things, or things I think are fun, that we're going to work with. First one I want to start with is this gorgeous mosaic covered vase. And this is in good kind of burnt umber to orangey tones, and I really do like that color combination. I put the Oasis foam, I've pre-soaked it so that we'd have plenty of time to do things. I have greenery ready to roll, and I just need to make a decision on which I'm going to use. This is, as they call it in the industry, Fat J. It's a false Aurelia, or no, it's not a false Aurelia, it's a true Aurelia, Fatsia J Aponica. So it really is one of the Aurelia. It's got that wonderful open leaf structure. They call it palmate. It's like the palm of your hand. And I really think it works very nicely for a lot of applications. This is a little bit of Israeli Rascus, or Israel Rascus. I've seen it both ways, and I don't really know quite for sure. And it is a great lasting, in fact, both of these greens have really wonderful vase life. I'm going to come in, I have some pieces, and this is one of those things in the industry. When you're designing, oftentimes you have smaller pieces left over, and you don't throw these away. You find a way to utilize them. So I'm going to come in and use this little bit of leather to help create the base on this arrangement that I'm making. And the foam gives you the ability to do all sorts of angles that you wouldn't naturally be able to do if it were on its own stem. There has been, in the last couple of years, quite a debate about whether foam should be allowed to be used, that it has some ecological issues, but they tell me that it is now a biodegradable product. I don't know if that means it has a half-life of 50 years or what, but it will eventually return to nature. And Europe pretty well banned it, but the foam company here in the States got it together and made this that should be better for our environment. So we've got just kind of a basic start to it, some height in the center, and then the broader leaves around the base. Because I had pre-glossed the other foliage, I can't stand this not being glossed. So I'm hitting it, and you see that little bit of spray go by. Often laugh that florists probably will develop a shiny lung disease somewhere along the way. I hope not, but it could happen. Brought in some really wonderful product. This is a clump celosia, if you will. My grandmother called this a brain celosia because it does look very much like the folds in a human brain when you get to looking at it. And it is one of the everlastings. It will dry and hold most of the color. If you take this and especially hang it to dry in a relatively cool, dark space, you can utilize this for many, many years. And this is part of that local grown product that I am so pleased that we have available to us. We recently, as of this week, went down to the area where they're growing and got a tour of all the product that is growing, and hopes, some of the experimental things that they are trying. And then we also had a wonderful dinner with the lady that runs the grow operation. So that was fun. These are fairly heavy blossom, and so I could put them up tall, but my vision for this is not going that high. So I'm going to bring them in lower and tuck them down, and I am cutting the stem on an angle and driving it deep into the foam. I think that's one of the things that oftentimes a beginning florist or someone arranging makes the mistake of doing, is not to cut it and drive things deeply into the foam. Water all goes to the bottom, and so I think you need to have the base of the stem where the water is. I know there are florists that would argue with me on that, but that's okay. I'm doing the show and they're not, so I can say that. Beautiful orange carnations, and I like this because it's a little shade different than what we had there. So we've just added another shade, a tint, a tone, if you will, into this arrangement, and I think that helps make it more interesting. We used to see a lot of Colorado carnations, and that whole industry is gone. They're just all South American, or almost all South American, or other countries now. We had some roses in last week, which I thought were very, very interesting, and they were called a grass-eyed rose, and they were from Ethiopia. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, we're just bringing product in from around the world, and how interesting is that, that really is in the course of my business life that has changed. So we've got these in, we've got kind of a nice start. I'm trying to debate whether I want to use this, which is yet another shade of orange, and I think I will go for it. I will put this up and a little bit taller. This is actually another type of celosia. This one is called a feather celosia, and it's a little lighter, little featherier, stretches out more. See if we can tuck this into the side. And there are a lot of ways that we could work with this, but I think I'm going to probably leave that. I've got kind of a nice symmetry. I've got 3 of the brain celosia, I've got 3 of the feather, I've got 3 carnations, and so there is a nice symmetry to that arrangement. I think I will come in and maybe put 3. This is, again, another one of those locally grown products, and I'm not even totally sure what it is. It reminds me a lot of shatter cane from the farm. It's that loose-headed kind of cane-like product. And I think it will add, because everything in this arrangement is fairly stiff, so I'm liking the idea of putting this in, that it will help to add a little bit of motion, so that when you move it or maybe a little breeze goes by, there is a little more motion in this. And motion, in my mind, is equated to being more lifelike. I think that it makes it open up and just be a little more lifelike. Maybe one more, because I've got kind of a spot over here that I didn't really anticipate very well. Let's see if we can do a little bit of leather leaf down in the center to cover my mechanics. Wouldn't have to do that just for the shoot, but I'm so trained to always think I need to have my mechanics covered. I think that's just part of being a good florist, is that you think about those things and you take care of those things. So let's, maybe one more while I'm being, like I said, I like this idea of the motion in it. This, back to this container, it really is a fun container. And the really exciting thing about it, to me, is that it has a great after use. It is a votive, and I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but I've got a little votive flickering in it, so after the flowers fade, you would be able to take that out and second purpose it. I've got another idea that I want to show you today. I'm going to start with this particular vase, and I chose it because of the color, because it went into my theme for the day, if you will. And it is plastic. I don't always like a plastic container. However, sometimes to get the color and the shape that I really like, that's a choice. Plastic is light when it's empty, but when you put the water in, then you get the weight, and it's stable. So I'm going to go back and pull a couple of these Fatsia J Aponicas again and tuck them in. And I'm going to just do these on opposite sides. So I really have covered most of the lip of this container. And next, I have this wonderful Viburnum berry that is in these great fall shades, and I'm going to cut it off. It's a very woody stem, and I'm going to tuck it down in the center. Oops, and it's heavy, so may have to do a little bit of work with it as we get to going here. And I could come in again with, this is probably the quick and easy way to help stabilize it, because this is a big stem. Cut a stem or two of this brain Celosia, and we'll tuck one in on this side, come around to the other side, and put it in on the other side as well. And I don't know that I can get this to show, but that really does start to stabilize things in this vase. As we've talked about before, it really is a matter of getting the structure tight enough to make it work. And then I have these beautiful Rudbeck Daisies. And again, part of that product that we're seeing being locally grown for us. And so we've got kind of a wonderful wildflower effect. We've got beautiful product, and the vase life is very good because it is so very fresh. It's cut in the morning and it's in my cooler in the afternoon, and there is no way that I can beat that. Traditional channels, probably about a week is the minimum in order to get product from a grower through a wholesale house and into my cooler. So it's great to have that sort of instant, almost instant availability. Now, if we could just figure out how to make it grow 12 months out of the year. But as you know, we have this thing called winter, or something like winter, and so time frame is fairly limited. We're just about 3, maybe 3.5 months in the summer that we have this product available. These are just fun and kind of funky little flowers, so I want to put them up high. What I'm trying to do, I want to put the bigger, heavier blossoms lower, which is always a good choice in design, and then put the other blossoms up taller. This is a little more than time and a half the container, but I think I can make it work. And if I can't, well, we'll just think I should have. So let's come in with a little bit more of this feather celosia. Got some of these wonderful pieces of it. Great tones again, good oranges, and a little bit lighter. And so I'm again following some of the basic rules of design. I'm putting the lighter color a little higher. The darker color then is lower, kind of draws your eye down and in. What I'm starting to see as this comes together is that the celosia on the bottom are kind of veiled or hidden with the berries, and I'm liking that feel. And if you see, I'm laying some to the side. The reason I'm doing that is that color does vary with them, and I'm trying to choose the ones that I think most go with this arrangement. These two are nice, and maybe it's a very fine difference. It's a little bit peachier, and I thought I can use those in something else, so I will try to do this first. And always give it that fresh cut as I put it back into water. Lots of ways, again, that we could go with this. Could go ahead and tuck the carnations in like we had earlier. We can take a little bit of the Pizziporum, and I brought some out and apparently didn't bring it far enough. So we'll do a little bit more of this particular grass. We've also got one piece of this mystic grass, which is fun. Again, kind of an ephemeral sort of feel to it. I got to see these grasses growing, and I enjoyed really being able to see how they grow and understand a little bit about the nature of them. Sometimes when you see something growing in nature, it helps spark the way that it should be used. You understand how maybe it's best utilized to look natural. Not that it always has to look natural. And again, this is one of those joint grasses, if you will, so it will pop at those joints, which that piece just did. Got a little too rough, so popped it off. And my birds are really having a moment. And there's no train coming through. A lot of times when that 5 o'clock train comes through, it does set the birds off, but they're just having a moment of their own, so enjoy them. And I think that is what I really want to do with this. Very simple, bright colors. The yellow elevates that whole look, takes it into a little more maybe summery effect because of that sunny yellow in there. But it also would work great through the fall. I'm Wayne DeBey, the Flower Man, and I hope you've enjoyed what I presented today.
Good evening, and this is Peggy from the Flower Nook, and I am so excited tonight because I'm sitting across from Pam Pentico. And I've only known Pam for about a year, and I want to say before I even start talking to her that I've watched her go through several transitions that have just been amazing to me, as only an artist could go through. And so very, very excited to have you here, Pam. Now you now have a company name.
Yes, Yellow Brick Art Studio.
And does that represent something, Yellow Brick?
Kansas, with the Yellow Brick Road. And I have a friend that was very into Oz. And I said, one day he painted some bricks and some pink flowers fell on them, and I went, oh, that's so cool, and I'm a photographer, so I took a picture of it, and then I went, oh, wait a minute, that would be a really cool painting. And I used it as the back on my business card on the base. And so I went, well, that's awesome. I'm just going to use that. And now we're just getting to where we're going to start a website. And it's not just going to be me, it's going to be several other artists on there too. So.
Yeah, and I've watched that on the Facebook where you're challenging other artists. So not only are you, doing your personal growth, but you are really adding to a lot of other people's, which is really nice, artists. So I'm looking at Pam's necklace, which is why I originally was so fascinated with Pam, because she makes jewelry, and that's saying it very mildly, because she makes these most wonderful pieces, earrings and match. So this is her jewelry piece. So jewelry has been a love of yours. Is it the combination of combining?
It started out, originally my jewelry started out as a wire wrapping and metalwork, because I took a course in college up at Marymount when they were still here in metalworking jewelry. And I was just always fascinated by it. And then it went from there to I really got into beads. I've never met a bead I didn't have to have. So I've got a whole room full of beads.
That's how it started, yeah.
Yeah, and then it just turns into things.
Well, they're always gorgeous.
Thank
What
you.
we have at the store with Pam's work is we have her jewelry, of course, but we have some painted on canvas bags and aprons, very fun. But we also have a new kind of new fascination with her, where she's taken the old design of acrylic pour, and now she's manipulating that in a kind of a fun way to make a whole new look of a hanging. So tell us about that technique without giving your secrets away. We don't want to.
Well, instead of putting the paint on the canvas, I put the canvas on top of the paint that's been poured. People do dips all the time, but I have a special way of manipulating it and pulling it up off of its base so that it creates different shapes. And I do it heavy enough that it actually gives the painting some texture. And then the other ones I start as a pour, and because I actually have two different techniques, and then I'll do a little bit of painting and a little bit of actual pour type technique to it, and then I add some special chemistry to it, and the whole thing turns into a forest. So.
Well, the interesting thing about that technique is that normally artists are looking down or easily, and they're looking here and they're seeing it unfold, and they add the colors. But what Pam is doing is she is putting color down and then covering it up with something else, so she doesn't know what she's making until she peels that off. And, it's just that it's her touch and her eye color, and then when it comes up, and sometimes she has to come back and do another layer, but what she has made from that technique is, it's just like maybe you've seen into the future and somehow it's magically appeared, on that canvas. It's a really interesting technique, and I haven't seen it done beforehand. Not only is there some that are bright colors, but there's been really fun muted tones too.
Yes, and it's sometimes I do work, since I work off of a base, I was showing Peggy earlier that it sometimes what I think is going to be trash that's left on the base actually ends up being a picture.
Yeah, with your mushroom thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So what future are you into something different? Are you projecting a new avenue, or what will we see from you as you unveil more?
I'm going to continue with that technique. A lot of people like, especially at this time of year, the fall trees and things like that. So I have been doing a lot of trees lately. And then also I've been doing angels with with Christmas coming up. People are thinking about angels and things like that. And I'm also working on some religious type art. I have art that is been slated to go to people and it's like a commission piece that I'm doing for some monks up in Schuyler, Nebraska.
Oh, wow.
So I'm working on that right now. And then I'm on my own doing a set of 4, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They're going to be mixed media kind of a thing. So I'm working on that too.
Sounds like you're doing some challenging thing for yourself, and we'll
Yeah.
be excited to see what it comes out, and hope we get to show it at the store. So
Well, it's always something new.
yeah.
I can't just do one thing. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people that move from project to project.
That's the
So,
artist in you. That's what I find inspiring. So we're very excited you're here. Thank you for being at the Flower Nook, and we look forward to seeing more.
Well, thank you.
Hello, Peggy from the Flower Nook, and today we're talking to a wonderful artist who has an exhibit of sunflowers on the wall at the Flower Nook, and this is Pam Barker. And so, Pam, tell us about when you started painting.
I think my first experience probably was when I was 4 years old, and I had been really sick, and my dad says, "What would you like me to buy in town?" And I said, "Some chalk," because I wanted to color with chalk. I don't know why, but that's when I first started. And I studied it a little in college, and never really had the time to get back into it because you're trying to work and
Yeah.
make a living maybe and help with your family, raise your family. So, like many retired people, finally get to do a few things you'd like to do.
So you told me that it's like 2009 or something like that when you really got out, start with paintbrush with a vengeance again and start painting, which is not that long ago to do it. But I've been real excited about the different colors and the different techniques, and it makes a very splashing wall. Now, I know, because I've seen Pam's line, that she does a lot of things, not just sunflowers, and she uses a lot of different mediums. This is pretty well acrylic that we have now, I think.
Yes, you have a lot of acrylic.
Yeah. And we are going
paints.
to, we're looking forward to in the fall, when it gets more, oranges and that kind of weather, we're going to switch from Pam's thing and let people kind of look at that process there. So Pam, when do you paint? Are you a morning, when do you have a routine? Like, is it morning or night? Do you have to have the radio on? Do you have to dance first? What is it about you and your painting?
Oh, you're getting interesting now. I'm a morning person, and I paint in the morning because I like the morning light. I paint in my kitchen. I mean, I could paint anywhere, but I like to paint in my kitchen right over my stove and get things set up. And then in the afternoon, sometimes I'll move and go over to and the west side of the house and touch up or see things a little different light. But no, I don't usually have music. I've thought about it, but I just seem to be happy without the music.
With the quiet of doing that.
And with the quiet, the thing is, when the telephone rings, sometimes I don't answer it because I have acrylic. I use acrylic paints mostly, and they dry quickly.
Yeah, and you're in the zone. Yeah, you don't want to stop from what you're doing just to hear someone on the phone. Yeah, that's true. Now, you always do it on a canvas? Have you done wood or other metal?
Oh yes. I paint on wood, have painted on wood quite a bit. Some winter scenes and animals and watercolor paper, and you can really paint on anything, and interestingly you can use any kind of paint. I think Van Gogh, who did sunflowers, he started out using house paint. Can you imagine?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I was thinking, Monet, you know, he was an impressionist, and I do like the impressionists and the soft strokes and paint. Softer than more detailed, although I do like buildings, and so that requires getting a perspective and, you know.
So besides the beauty of the nature, what inspires you?
Well, right now I'm inspired with my granddaughter and trying to do portraits, and that's really a horse of a different color and quite a challenge, but I like the challenge, and I'm going to get it. You know, it's just, the question is when.
Yeah.
So,
And do you paint from her sitting, or do you take the photograph and paint from the photograph if you're doing her?
yes, I go from a painting, and being a novice and a student, I divide it up into quadrants, the head, so I'll know where I'm at, where I should get those eyes, you know. So I've been learning how to do that, and it's a challenge.
Yeah, and you know, you're very brave to pick a family member, because they are the critics of our
She
world.
is, and she's so sweet. She'll say, Mimi, just one little thing here, and she approaches it so softly and so sweet.
So
And I said, well, what
delicate.
do you think? What do you think? I says, well, I think that's just a little large. If you would make that just a little smaller there, I think it'd look right. I said, I can do that. It's not a problem.
Funny, that's great.
I know.
So on the horizon for you, you're going to keep on painting. Do you dabble in jewelry or any other kind of media that you?
No, not really. I find interior decorating a lot of fun, and have done that a lot in my past. So, and a challenge in flipping houses. I used to do that. I think that just wore me out and broke my back down. But that's a lot of fun, and that's a way to express yourself too. You know, arranging things and selecting colors, and you must do that too when you make your arrangement and decide the colors and structure and the size and how it's going to fit in where you're thinking about.
Yeah, I always tell people you learn the rules, and then you break the rules. That's the whole passion of the art world, is you have to know the basics before you can understand how to break the basics. You know, to really get in that process. But
And I think that's true of anything. I can see it in art. If you want to abstract something, distort it, you need to know what the realism, how realistic it is before you abstract it. And it's kind of like a gourmet cook. You've got to know the basics of making a cake before you want to shake it up
So
a little
true.
bit. And same with what you're doing, the flowers and arrangements, I'm sure. Like you said, probably asymmetric arrangements, very nice and safe, but you know, maybe you stick a flower out here going this way.
yeah, and then you got to decide whether you're making it for yourself or for the public, because it's a different medium for what they want and what you want, and yeah, that's a whole process.
And then the area and the culture of a town or state even affects what we do, I think, don't you?
Oh yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Well, we're very excited that you're here. Really love your
Well,
work, and
thank you.
very pleased
Very
that you
kind.
agreed to come. So, looking forward to see more and what direction you go, and maybe I want a portrait painted.
Oh, gosh. Well, I think that's a good idea. I don't think I'll be the hardest, but
Well, thank you again for coming.
you're welcome, Peggy. Thank you.
See you soon.